Come back in time with me. Let's go to 1944, some of the darkest days of World War II, and you are Winston Churchill. Your people have lost so much. They've lost their homes to bombings. They've lost husbands and fathers and sons to combat, and now they're losing hope. You want your people to be full of hope and resolve and courage. So where do you turn to inspire a nation? Well, Winston Churchill turned to Shakespeare. Why Shakespeare? Because in addition to double, double toil and trouble, and to be or not to be, Shakespeare gives us the greatest collection of leadership case studies ever assembled. All of his plays are basically about leadership. In fact, he wrote the Playbook of leadership. So Churchill has the government make a movie of Shakespeare's Henry V, starring Laurence Olivier, the greatest actor of the time, to be released 2 weeks before D-Day. How do I know all of this? I have been a Shakespeare superfan since I was a kid. I remember my mom taking me to the Utah Shakespeare Festival and my grandmother giving me her copy of the complete works of Shakespeare so I could take my notes in the margin on the same page where her notes in the margin were. I also moved to Washington, where I worked at Folger Shakespeare Library, and now I'm a researcher there. And with all that experience, as well as talking a lot about leadership, I can tell you that everything you need to learn about leadership, you can learn from Shakespeare. How? Well, let's look at what Churchill chose, Henry V. What makes him such a great leader? There is that famous speech, "We few, we happy few, we band of brothers." That speech, that phrase, has been used in leadership training for years. So that's it? Henry V became a great leader because he gave a great speech? That's not the whole story. It's really what he does the night before the speech, when he takes off his royal robes and puts on the robes of an ordinary soldier, walks among the camp and listens and learns what his people need from him. He heard them say they were overwhelmed by how outnumbered they were. So he said, "We are enough." He heard they were worried that he would do what so many medieval kings did, pay a ransom and get escorted off the field in safety. He wanted to assure them he would be with them, so he told them, "He who sheds his blood this day with me shall be my brother." And he heard them say how discouraged they were. The odds were so bad it didn't matter what they did and no one would ever remember. So he told them that gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap while any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's Day. Now, Henry was a king and a great leader, but most of Shakespeare's greatest leaders are ordinary people making the extraordinary decision to lead. Take Juliet. Yes, that Juliet, as in Romeo and... We think of her as a young, naive teenager in love who totally falls apart. But that's not the real story. She doesn't fall apart. Actually, right from the start, that balcony scene when she and Romeo are pledging their love, and she tells him, "You need to leave now, it's getting dangerous." He says, "Wilt thou leave me so unsatisfied?" And she says, "If thy bent of love be honorable, and thy purpose marriage, send me word tomorrow." In other words, right from the start, she is setting the boundaries of that relationship, and he agrees. So they get married, and then he accidentally kills her cousin and gets himself banished, plunges both families into chaos, and now she's expected to marry Paris to save the family's reputation. She doesn't want to do that, so she goes to the friar, and he says, I've got a great plan. Take the potion in this vial. It will make you fake dead. Your family will think you're really dead. They'll put you in a tomb with a whole bunch of dead people. Romeo will come in and whisk you off to happily ever after. That night, Juliet's thinking, is this really a great plan? But she doesn't have a lot of options. In her day, she was considered the property of her father. So she took the risk because if all else fails, I myself have power to die. So she drinks the potion, and surprisingly enough, it works. She's fake dead. Her family thinks she's real dead. They put her in the tomb, and she wakes up among all the dead people. So now she's looking for Romeo to take her off to happily ever after, and there he is, dead. And there's the friar walking out the door. Now, we think now's when she kills herself because she can't live without Romeo, right? But that's not really what happens. Yay, noise? Romeo's not making noise. He's dead. The noise is the guards coming into the tomb to drag her back to her father's house, where she'll be forced to live the life he wants her to live. And she's not going to do that. Yea, noise, then I'll be brief. O happy dagger, this is thy sheath, their rust, and let me die. Juliet knows the line she will not cross. Then there's Isabella from Measure for Measure. She's training to become a nun when her brother's best friend bursts into the convent, says, you have to come with me to save your brother's life. You see, the new duke, Angelo, is a little consumed with his power and has been sort of imposing his will on everybody and persecuting and condemning the people not living the way he thinks they should. So Isabella goes in to plead for her brother's life, and all Angelo keeps saying is, look, I can do what I want. I have the power. I don't need to listen to you. I'll do what I want. So Isabella calls him out. Oh, it is excellent to have a giant's strength, but it is tyrannous to use it like a giant. As you can imagine, he's not too thrilled to hear that, so he sends her away. But he can't stop thinking about her. So he calls her in the next day, and she's pleading for her brother's life, and he says, okay, sleep with me, and I'll let him go. Well, she's appalled and horrified and says no. And he says, seriously, sleep with me, or I'll have him killed today. Now she has a card to play, and she tells him, I will go public. I will proclaim thee, Angelo. And he responds with a question that breaks my heart, because in 400 years, we haven't figured out how to answer it. Who will believe thee, Isabel? Then he lists all the reasons that even though she's telling the truth, she won't be believed. His place in the state, his wealth, his power, his contacts. And he ends up saying, say what you will, my faults or ways you're true. So Isabella's faced with a choice, and what does she do? She speaks up anyway. In public, she says exactly what Angelo did, even though he's standing right there trying to shout her down, accusing her of being insane or out to get him. She keeps talking. Now, why do these stories, written more than 400 years ago, still feel so relevant and resonant today? Because as much as our world lurches and changes, true leadership principles remain the same. Henry V, listen to and learn from your people so you can give them what they need to be successful. Juliet, set the parameters in your life, in your relationships, and know the line you will not cross. Isabella, have the courage to live from your values and speak truth to power. These are lasting principles, and Churchill knew it. When asked years after the war why the Allies and the British in particular had been successful, he acknowledged there were many reasons, but he believed, having Shakespeare's words, once more unto the breach, dear friends, once more, in British hearts made a difference. Now, Grandma Helen gave me this book because she knew it would open new worlds to me, and it has. And I now offer it to you, the Leadership Playbook, full of everything you need to know about leadership, those lasting principles that haven't changed over time. And so now, along with Grandma Helen and Shakespeare, I ask you, lords and ladies, will you lead? Thank you.